Yes, sir, Rita. We got a firestorm in here today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, my name is John Washington, and welcome to Black Beat. Today, we are here celebrating a few good things and some beautiful things in light of some not so beautiful things, but we're going to get to each of them today. I'm also honored to have my co-host and director in the room today with this exciting award. Part of what Flossin has been doing over the years is looking at and identifying some real interesting topics around who's who and who is really adding something to the black community and who ain't. But we talk a whole lot about what we do and what we don't do. But today, we're going to talk to some of them winners. Not some of them people who are talking about doing some of the things that they do, but some winners. This morning, I also would like to introduce you Fawn Aberson on our set. She has been a real supportive director and developer of this podcast, and I am honored to have her on the show today. Good morning, Fawn.
Good morning, John. Good morning. Yeah, I'm really excited because our team of writers under your tutelage has been working hard on this next issue of Flossin Magazine, Build Black Better. As part of that, our staff has been working pretty hard doing a lot of research, and we came up with the list, right? So our guest today tops the list of Flossin Magazine's upcoming edition as the number one of 5 organizations who are building the black community back and better than ever. We welcome one of the founders, the president, and the managing partner of Raimore Construction, Jeff Moreland Sr.
Hey, brother, welcome to the show, boy. This is a hot one, boy. It's good to have you in the house today. It's been a little bit trying to get you here, though, but we got you here. Hey, man, the world is actually tipsy and turby. Mm-hmm. But, man, this last one, boy, was a barn burner. And it's interesting how it's shaping up, man. So let's chop that up a little bit before we get into this award, man, because I'm always respecting your thoughts on some things. And when this occurred, I wrote a little piece. And so I'd like to read this little piece real quick and get some basic response before we move into some of the other stuff, because I like to wade through the doo-doo before I get to the good stuff first, so if I had a choice. But this is what I wrote in relationship to Tide. It may be odd to some, but one of the strongest thoughts I had watching the now widely reviewed footage of Tide Nichols' final fatal encounter with the men of Memphis Police Department was, where was the father? When Tide cried out, "Mama," where was the cry for his father? Where was the father in each of the officers who looked at the young man not as a son, but as hunters who just caught their prey and propped him up on display as a trophy? Where was the father's voice inside the head of this young man, Ty, whispering, "Be still, be calm, face your fears, I am with you"? Black men, black fathers, what say you? Where is the father in each of us leading us to the best versions of ourselves? Where is our father, our internal governor, the true fiber of men? That is love. There is no greater thing than this. Men, we need our fathers, our higher power, our higher consciousness to awaken in us each day and remain if we are to eradicate the pain for those we are born to protect. Now, when I wrote that, man, I don't know where I was at that time, B, but I was telling you, man, I was feeling something, man, because it just didn't seem right. At what time in our lives as men do we grow out of the cry for our mother, especially on the field of battle? So it was a little bit kind of uncomfortable, but it also opened up some other things, Jeff. It opened up this whole notion about us being insignificant or us being invisible. Who are we as black men in our communities today? Man, so anyway, I'm going to open that up to you, bruh. It was a heavy one for me, so I had to drop that out there, because I know in the past you and I have kicked it on this issue around gender and that stuff. And it wasn't so much that gender played a part in that, but it just seemed to me that it was just all men. And it's always odd that we as men cry out for our mamas when, in fact, I wouldn't bring my mama into battle. I wouldn't call for her in a complicated situation where I think she would get hurt. I would assume that I would call my father. So anyway, talk to me a little bit. But it's just a deeper meaning, but
Man, that's a lot, John. Wow, where to begin? Well, let me just say this, is that as black men, you know as well as I know, we have been made insignificant, right? We've been under siege for a very, very, very long time, right? The black men, all men have been under attack, but specifically the black men in this country have been under siege for a very, very long time. The reason why our young men cry out for their mothers is because the fathers have not been there. The fathers have not been there because they've been under siege. They've been attacked. You know, you look at, the 13th Amendment, you look at the black codes, you look at the prison industrial complex, you look at flooding our communities with drugs and all this thing. They've essentially neutralized the black men's presence. So you have a group of men growing up not only without fathers, but a hatred for black men, which is why you see so much violence in the street, right? We see our brothers killing each other all the time because of this removal and the fathers not being there, right, in their lives. But that was done to us, and it's too much to go into. There's not to plug somebody else, man, there's a young brother who's talking about these issues a lot, and he has a thing he did talking about to all black men. And it's worth watching, right? It's a brother he goes by the name of Truth Unedited, and he gives a history on how black men in this country have systematically been completely conquered, completely taken out, to where now our young men are looking to their mothers for protection, not to their fathers.
The invisible man.
Right? The invisible man. Yeah. The invisible need has been on our neck forever. So anyway, so it's just a lot to talk about, man. It just breaks my heart. There's a prayer vigil that I'm gonna go down to here to kind of do this. But what needs to happen is we as so-called black men have to start waking up. We have to understand who we truly are, and once we understand who we truly are, we can reclaim our identity. And we realize that, that so-called black men, black is a color, man. It's not, we do have a history prior to being here in this country, right?
Right.
And,
culture.
And we have, that's been taken from us, but it's actually been preserved. If you do the research, you can find that. And once you understand who you are, then you can actually reclaim, what was always intended for you to be. We are a very powerful people. The black man is one of the strongest people on the planet who has been essentially attacked and neutralized. It reminds me of a passage over in Psalms 83 that talks about how they all been confederate against us, right? And to really remove us from...
they were all conspiring against us.
They have. They've been conspiring against us for the whole time, right? Yeah. So this is where we are, which is why it's been so tough for us in every aspect of everything that we do. And now we have the father's been completely removed from the home, and our men don't know what fathers look like. So they don't see him as a son. They see him as an enemy. So they attack him as an enemy. Like you said, prey. They see him as prey. We see the men, we don't see them. We have, these young men out here killing old men. They don't see him as fathers and uncles. They just see him as somebody that wasn't there, that they hate. And until we start, dealing with that issue amongst ourselves, and, some of us who are being men, who are strong men like yourself and myself and many others that you have on this podcast, start standing up and claiming who we are, and start the awakening process, so we know we have our identity. And that's when things are going to change and turn our hearts back to where it should be.
Well, that sounds like some true leadership, my brother, and that gets us right back to where we originally started. But do you have some to add to this?
Well, so Jeff, John made me watch that video, right, on Friday. I was like holding my breath all day Friday. John kept coming in and saying, well, they're about to release that footage. They're about to release that footage. And something inside me just wanted to see something different than what they had said we were going to see. And I had anxiety, and John was kind of coaching us all over here at the office through it. And it got to be, I'd like to hear you guys talk about this, and I heard John talk about this Scorpion team, this squad, right? When men squad up, when they get together, there's power in that, but then there was also, a lot of pain in this particular case. So, John, you
man.
talked a little bit about,
Yeah, boy.
you can understand the perspective of these.
You know, Fawn, and you just kicked me in the gut on that one. It's not a bad kick, but it's just one that I'm also familiar with. I mean, some of us, are trained to be warriors. And, and I spent all my life as a warrior. If it ain't football, if it ain't the hood, it's going after, it's protecting my sisters and my brothers. And, if it wasn't it, from the mob and the gangs and all of that stuff. So all my life I was trained to go get them. And I could sort of, and it doesn't take away what these brothers did, but I could understand somewhat the elements that are at play. I mean, and just to sort of bring us, I don't know if any of y'all ever raised any hunting dogs. And, and when you get a pack of hunting dogs, if you get about 4 of them hunting and you send them out there and you get them all trained up and get them all riled up and you send them out there after the prey. And them dogs, let me tell you something, when you send them in there after a hog, them dogs sometimes go in there and they get towed up. So you got to rush in there real quick and make sure you got some governance over your dogs in there. But what I've understood is that there has never been a predictable indicator of how that prey is going to turn out after I turn them dogs loose. So there was just a little bit of sense of compassion for them brothers. I think that there was a real outrageous violence that they inflicted upon that young man that was unnecessary. But I understand the element of the chase, and then what comes out of that. So I'm just not so much ready to just throw them brothers away, because I'm not gonna kill all my dogs because one of them ate up something. So anyway, it just sort of hit me in a way. The brother wasn't doing nothing. He didn't deserve that treatment. I will reiterate that. But there's definitely, it takes a jailer to have a prisoner and a prisoner to have a jailer. And that dynamic, we didn't know what them brothers was up underneath at that time. There's no cause for them to treat anybody that way, but I understand the alpha energy on the chase, and that's all I'm trying to make a point about.
I think you were always talking about, like, when you need that sort of that spirit, when there's some real demons.
Oh yeah, thank you about that one, Fawn.
When
yeah.
there's some real dangers that that's what men do. They activate. They protect. But I think, as Jeff pointed out, it got all skewed somehow.
What's the conditioning? What happened is they followed their conditioning.
Right.
And
their training.
When they don't have,
shit.
when you don't have a love for, and you can objectify that individual. You don't see him as a father. You don't see him as a son. You don't see him, as a nephew. You don't see him as an uncle, right? You just go to your conditioning. That's the way they've been programmed to absolutely be, right? And then talking about, again, all the pain that they've gone through and the trauma that they've had to go through in their lifetime. And, most of them probably, I guarantee, didn't have fathers, in their lives. And so this is where, you do this. So the compassion, in the situation is very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that this has been done to us as a collective. It's no different than me watching all these young brothers out here killing each other. Chirac is in Dayton, Ohio, and these places are just absolutely
it's crazy.
Zones,
it's tough.
They are laying bodies down at an unprecedented rate. Black people laying black men down. Black men laying black men down at an unimaginable rate.
Can I ask you, though, did it hurt all the more because these were 5, 6, 7 black officers? Did it hurt all the more to you guys?
No, didn't hurt me at all. No more than any brother killing any brother. What hurts me more is these young kids out here at 15, 16-year-old killing each other, right? Because that shows you, at least these guys, conditioning, I can say, contributed to that, right? Okay. You have these kids that are growing up in a way with no care, no regard. It almost is a hopeless situation. Whereas these dudes, they've been taught and conditioned to react this way, right? There's no excuse for it. But the young kid on the street that just has no clue about any of this, right, that is completely deceived, by a system that has conditioned him to hate his own people and to kill a black man, or like it's nothing, to kill his own brother. It's just That's what I mean. No, so it was no difference for me. It's all painful to watch our people do this to each other.
Yeah, and then of course, it's that one where blacks always have to prove to the white man that we better and we stronger, or that we can get along and we can. So a part of that to me was them, getting that training. Somebody filling their head saying, "Well, y'all as good as white cops, so y'all just get out there and do whatever y'all need to do," and all of that. And then of course the Scorpion Unit, all that, all this stuff, man. We get so much more to unpack in that. But what I have a real strong propensity to just lean away from is this whole thing about us being insignificant and us being silenced and us being made invisible. Because we are important, we're significant, and as we have our guest today, this is part of what this whole contribution really is all about. So it's about the lack of leadership, and it's about, to some degree, us having that lack of leadership within ourselves. What drives us as individuals, as men, and what drives us as people in our consciousness, in our spirit. And today we have a brother here that has leaned into some of that work over the years and has begun to manifest, the heading a company, personal philosophy. Did or do you have any mentors, Mr. Jeff? How'd you get here to be a leader in your business today?
Well, I have a unique upbringing in that I grew up in an area that was predominantly black growing up. So I grew up where the grocery stores were owned by black people, where my doctors growing up were black. The mall was owned by black people. This is in Dayton, Ohio, the west side of Dayton, right? Bell Drug Store was where we, went to, do our pharmacy, work for. And so I had a unique opportunity because I lived on the west side of Dayton. It was predominantly black. It shaped me at an early age to realize I could be whatever I wanted to be. And it made me have an understanding of the importance of the unity within a people, right? Because we had to survive. In order to survive in the white racist Midwest, you had to unite together. So you have a whole side of town that's united together to take care of itself. And so this is where my entrepreneurial stuff, came from, right? To watch, all these young entrepreneurs, C.J. McLean and all these guys that were, having flourishing, businesses at the time and really supporting the community. And the fathers were very actively involved, running the community, right? We didn't, it's the fathers that stopped the fighting. It was the fathers that was strong in the community, right? And so you had that there. So that gave me a sense of understanding I could do whatever I could do, and it also gave me a sense of understanding the importance of the unity of our people. And everything I'm doing needs to be focused on how to make black better, right? How to make so-called black better. And I keep saying that because black is just a color, and I see us different, and who we are as a people, because I've done a lot of research so I don't see ourselves as black because we were somebody before we came here, right?
Well, I always believe that carbon, when they talk about carbon, the significance of a diamond, when I think about it, most people don't realize that a diamond starts out black, but it's placed under an extreme amount of pressure before it gets to sparkle.
And that's what we're about to do. We on the verge about to sparkle.
About to sparkle, about to shine.
We about to sparkle.
So, Jeff, tell me, man, what's it like managing the large staff of people that you have, man, in light of the fact of our conditions of our society today, having to be able to motivate people, keep people enrolled? What's it like to manage such a large staff? And how do you set the tone as a leader in that kind of environment, Jeff?
Well, I see it as for me, it's a blessing, right? The Father is, I'm a man of faith. My faith is, what drives me to everything that I do. And when I mean that, I'm not, I am a man of strong spirituality. I don't, I believe in the Most High. And so it's a blessing for me to be able to employ people, because I employ people to minister to them, right? And so I look at, my company as a hospital, especially because 70% of our management staff are people of color, right? Specifically black people, right? And 50% of our field is are people of color. And so we, or women, and so we really strive. And for me, my whole focus has been, how do I now take what has been given to me, right, and be able to give that to others, right? And so I see it as a as a ministry, as an opportunity to be able to employ people and to help them grow and to be the best version of themselves, help them get free, help them deal with the trauma. It's amazing the trauma that our people had.
Oh boy, isn't that
amazing, the trauma.
Man, I'm so glad you said that, and you know, and I, man, you one of them organizations that get it, that understand that the horse comes before the cart, you know, and we've been just wanting to throw opportunity at our people and all that, but you know, there's a barrier to our success, and again, it's been instilled in us, this whole consciousness that I'm not okay, you know, and so that's a real good one, Jeff. I mean, making sure that you address the trauma in people before you give them the gift is a real important part of this here whole process.
But John, I would just say, like, again, you know, to make the list of Flossin, right, of one of the top 5 organizations that's building Black better, is, you know, we looked at Black leadership. We looked at, you know, being able to recruit and manage a staff that, you know, was people of color, and, you know, and then being successful and philanthropic. But a lot of times what you'll hear in companies and stuff is like, oh, we can't find people of color, we can't find Black people, we can't find minorities to hire. They don't have the skill set, they're not trained, they're not, you know, they don't apply, or, you know, how did you overcome that? Because those are some impressive stats, you know, 70% and 50%.
Well, I
right?
realize that's a lie, right? So I realized that our people have been locked out. Construction is an industry that we've really been locked out. If you look at, you know, all the skilled labor was in the slave population in 1865 during Reconstruction. How do you take that and look at all the infrastructure that's been built in this country, right? We got out of the Great Depression because FDR put people to work. How do you take all that skill being in the slave population in 1865 and having very little of it in the population at 1975, right? That was been done to us, right? And we've been sold that we go down these other paths, but construction, if you have a willingness to work, you know, that's all you need. And for me, because I'm able to see the diamonds in the rough, I look for talent. And I realize that, you know, Black people are the most talented people, you know, on the planet, right? It's why we shape the culture, you know, for the world. Right? And so just because they've been locked out of something doesn't hinder their talent. I don't have a lot of people that came in as engineers because our kids have not been, you know, allowed those opportunities to go to the engineering school. So I bring a kid in, whether they got a degree or don't. If I find they have the aptitude, then we work with them, hold them accountable, realizing that we have to, you know, crack their head because we strive for excellence. You must be excellent, right, at what we do. And you have to have a willingness to work. You know, some people I've had to fire 3 or 4 times, right? And bring them back.
Yeah, you could.
Did you know there's a new national broadband map? You can learn more about the internet services available in your area and help improve the maps by visiting broadbandmap.fcc.gov. Again, that's broadbandmap.fcc.gov.
Right,
just to bring them back part.
Just to bring them back, right? Because they don't get it, and I have to show them that I'm serious about it. But always recognize the talent, and I have to separate the talent from the trauma. And so how do I get this talent and help this trauma heal? Realizing that this dude is a very talented, or this young lady is a very talented person, but she just has so much baggage and trauma that if I can work with her to help her deal with that trauma, then I'll have this diamond in the rough that'll turn out to flourish like you cannot believe. And,
Boy, I've been listening in class.
Yeah. So,
He been listening in class. You know, because the class definitely is there. That's a great answer.
Yeah, is therapy in the CEO job description?
Well, I had to get a lot of therapy myself because being Black in this country, I had a lot of trauma.
Hey, look here. That sister down there in Oakland over Black Lives Matter wasn't joking. She said when the interviewer was asking her, he says, well, if you give reparations, well, and you had a reparation bag to give everybody, what would be the first thing you put in the bag? The sister didn't even miss a beat. She said, I'd get them an endless mental health card that they for mental health services. That'd be the first thing I put in there. And I ain't mad at them, you know. So, Jeff, tell me, man, I mean, but all this work and all this, there has to be something at the other end. I mean, so the reward, right? So let's talk about getting the gold, man. What's the key to this leader to getting the big deal, man? How, because I mean, when you look at it, I mean, right now you've gotten some of the to get here. You had to get the goal, to be able to carry such a large staff, to be able to continue the vision as large as you have it. You got to have the goal. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you should have some goal.
Yeah,
you sound like you get old.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Raimore Construction again landed some of the largest contracts. First with, I think TriMet was first one of the largest minority contracts, and that was in the tens of millions, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project, which is, tipping the scales at over $1 billion, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so what was the journey like, man? How'd you, what's
the journey like
there? Let's talk about it. How'd you get there, man?
Started with a truck, man.
He started with a truck. At least he was hauling some stuff.
You know what? I bought a lot. I went to school. I went to, that the school was the only way. Boy, go to school, get you one of them good jobs, but you're going to break your back. And so I did that, and I did the corporate dance. I worked for a lot of major corporations as an executive, and I was always, buying homes on the side, because I was always an entrepreneur. And so I decided, I went to an internet startup, and they didn't get the second round of funding, and so I just started a business that was doing consulting to small to medium-sized business, and most of my businesses were contract. Interesting, one of my first customers was James Posey.
Yes, sir, President NAACP.
And that's when I realized that the construction industry was a gold mine and an opportunity. People don't realize that over the top 50 companies, 26 of them in Oregon are construction companies.
Yeah.
And so there's a gold mine, and you have every discipline in there. And so for me, being true to the game, I started a construction company, and I got out there and I started doing the work, which is why it took us a while for us to grow, because you can't manage anything or run anything if you don't understand it yourself.
Yes, sir.
So I spent the first 10, 15 years out there, probably 15 years out there on the streets, actually laying the bricks, pouring the concrete, tying the rebar, because you can't, do it.
Can't teach it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you
You're
can't
not
teach
an
it if
overnight success?
Yeah. You can't teach it if you don't know how to do it.
And the grind. I'm in the evening in the office doing the business, right? So I would work from 7 to 4 o'clock in the morning out there in the field, and then go run the business from 4 o'clock, at night to midnight, and get that under. And that's what it took. And then as I started understanding, I started bringing people around me. I always had my partner Andre that was with me, and hard down with his boots laced up.
Yeah.
And then I started adding people like Jesse, and and then we had the whole group of the youngsters that's come on that kind of grew up watching this opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's how we get here. And when we win these jobs out of competency. So we're not, we don't need you to tell us how to do our job. You give us the plans, the specs, the drawings, and we'll go build it. Right, and we'll tell you if something doesn't look right and work right, and because we're competent at what we do, and that's how the only way to do that is to get out there and do this work. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen in 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 years. For me, it's been out there building for 15 years. It's only been the last 7, 8 years that I've actually not been out there touching the work at that level. Even though 2 or 3 years ago I was on a colas job and had to go finish the sidewalk, which I can do. I'm finishing the curb.
Step in, get out the way, young man. That's why they asked me not to coach.
Ain't no shame in my game. You know what I mean?
Get out the way. Let me show you how to do
show
this.
you how to do this. Stick around, my friend. I've been doing this for years.
Yeah. So what is Raimore specializing in right now?
We're a heavy civil contractor. We primarily do streetscape work. One of the things that was so unique about the I-5 Rose Quarter is you're talking about a $1 billion job that has the potential to give millions and millions of dollars into our community, right? In terms of living wage jobs, right? This is practical people, so they can, not low income housing. If they come in as an apprentice and they go to a journeyman, they'll be making $60,000, $70,000 a year. That's enough income to buy a house.
Yeah.
They go to a foreman and making $70,000, $90,000 a year. They go to a superintendent making $100,000 a year.
Nice.
And that's just with a good work ethic. And so the opportunity to give these kind of jobs to our people are are very critical for me, right? I mean, and it can, because that's how you change community. How you build wealth in a community is I give my dollars to John give them to me, I give them to Posey give them to John, and we keep those dollars amongst ourselves. And then we go out and we earn more dollars in our community, right, by doing the work we're doing, but we keep our dollars among ourselves. But you got to have some dollars to start. You know, Black Wall Street, Greenwood, they built that because they kept the dollars amongst themselves, but they had to have some dollars first to be able to get it going.
There you go.
And they did that through the oil fields. So,
right.
Anyway, so that's where it is. So
Jeff, I mean, so it's clear that you understand you have some staying power, but tell me, man, what's needed in this industry for you to get 15 years or 20? Is there anything like magic, that any kind of pill you could buy at the store, some formula that you could have
confidence.
that gives you the ability to sustain, man? Because after all, staying in anything, the game is about how long you in it. Mm-hmm. To be able to get that magic dollar, that kind that really makes you be able to change some shit. Mm-hmm. So what is that substance, Jeff, that you have identified that gives you the ability to sustain in this environment?
For me, it goes back to understanding truth, right? And understanding, where everything for me flows from. It flows from my relationship, right? To the Creator, and that gives me the staying power. Because many times I wanted to quit. It's tough out here, man. This is a very, very tough industry, man. And we got a lot of competitors, that don't want to see anybody succeed, let alone a young, so-called black man.
Yeah, it's always coming, ain't it?
Right, and so, I mean, you have to believe and you have to be called to it, right? And I believe I was called to it. The Father gave me all the prerequisite skills to be able to, do business, because I learned that out there. I just had to learn construction. And you just have to believe and you have to stay to it. Remember, success is really managing failure over time. Right? You said that. Success is really managing failure over time.
Yeah.
And if I can get through that 7, 8-year hump, 9-year hump, 10-year hump, you're going to have it figured out at that point.
Yeah.
And you'll learn how to, make it, so busy. You're not so busy trying to make a living that you can never make no money. See, I'm past that finally. I'm past the time where I'm just so busy trying to make a living, I couldn't make no money. I can think now about how to make some money. Right?
How to increase the money, how to keep it, right?
And then how to put that money in other people's pockets. See, I don't have the only one syndrome.
Yeah.
See, if I win, everybody around me wins. It's why 86% of the DTP, the Division Transit Project, was an $80 million project. A TriMet project, 86% of the work went to DBE firms. 50% of the actual work on the ground went to minorities.
Again, kind of stats that are unheard of. In this.
Yeah. Well, that's why they say he the champion.
Well, but John, I mean, you're onto a good point there, because I often, when we were first starting out and looking at success, John was like, well, anybody can get successful, but it's sustaining without self-destruction. And I know the I-5 Rose Quarter project is full of landmines. It's full of political challenges. Thank you. And it's the most talked about, project in town. And, you're sitting right there in the middle of the bullseye of it all, Jeff. I mean, how are you navigating those complexities? Because at that point, it's not about the competency of your work. It's about the ability to navigate this complex system.
Right, or the challenges. What are some of your challenges? About the challenges.
I mean, it's been very, very tough, because all I want to do is build something and get our people to work. Right? All I want to do is put some change in my people's pockets, right? You know what I mean? So they can get a living wage job, so they can buy homes, they can take care of their families, right? That's what this is about for me. And all the political stuff is come in and been co-opted. I mean, this whole project has been co-opted, right? We got one of the worst bottlenecks on the West Coast here, right? Something needs to be done, right? And all these, other interests have come in to try to co-opt this process. And all I'm hoping to do is let's build something so we can give people living wage jobs. Let's build the right project, because that's very important. Let's fix the bottleneck, because that's very important.
Yeah.
And let's make sure that this time the project is not mishandled in such a way that people of color don't get any benefit from it, like they did when they built the initial I-5, or they built the Motor Center, or when they built the Convention Center, which took hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth out of black population.
Right.
So my goal for this project was to try to make sure that this time we got a chance to benefit. And I figured if I could do, numbers like that on an $80 million project, if I can get on a $1 billion project and do just half of that,
Hey,
I mean, it's a ton more money, to the people. So hope that answered the question.
Well, there's been some sticklers though for you, so it kind of answered the question. But there's been some particular. Talk about the delays a little bit.
It's been very frustrating. It's been very frustrating that we spent a lot of time, people like James Posey and myself and many others, beating up ODOT for years to get them to be different, right? And they finally commit to this project to be different, right? And they really committed to it, right? At the highest level in ODOT.
Yeah, right to my face. Told me what he thought. He was going to do it the way he said he was going to do it. I asked him, is you full of shit or not?
No.
He can't say, no, I ain't full of shit. I said, well, you looks in your eyes like you ain't, you know.
And they done that. And it's amazing that the community has actually derailed the ability for us to actually benefit.
Yeah.
I was on a call, and I'm not going to say who, but it was a former, politician who asked me, well, Jeff, what's the if we delay the project another year and a half, what is the big deal with that? I said, for our community, it means death.
Yeah.
Our people are out here, they don't have any upward mobility. It means death for our people. They're out here killing each other because they can't find a way to take care of themselves because they've been completely locked out of the prosperity in this country.
Right, or we've been made to feel invalid or insignificant when we built this country.
Absolutely. And so that's what it means. And this was a person of color that was asking these questions. And for me, it's just about moving the agenda forward, getting our people a real opportunity to grow. And we're talking about careers. We're not talking about just jobs.
Yeah.
Right. I've been at this now in construction 25 years. Right. I have, a lot of people in their mid-30s that's been in it 10, 12 years. Right.
Yeah.
These are real careers. They're making really good money. And you get a chance to look at, we built a convention center with Colas, right? And we did that remodel on the convention center. And I'm proud to look at that and say, hey, man, we did that. We go out to Division Street, you look at all the work we did, right?
Yeah.
You look at all the work that people like Colas and some of these other, builders are doing. You take your children there, some of these parks we built those parks.
Yeah.
Where all these kids are playing.
Yeah.
And that, having meaningful living wages for meaningful work, right? That's how we live.
Yeah, I think I heard you say before, both of you guys saying, like, fully resourced people can afford time. Under-resourced people cannot.
Exactly.
Right? And
that's what John Washington is.
Yeah. And there are, we got adversaries. I mean, there are issues that even Rain, it's so amazing because this Ty Nicholson situation it's just a microcosm of what really we're experiencing in our communities and gender and all this issues that we're having. I mean, I was thinking about this, about black males in its essence, about how do we think about ourselves when one morning we wake up, from the struggle and we get in the game and somebody told us, but now you have 80 different genders you have to identify with before you can become. And we just still struggling trying to, how the hell am I be black? And all this. Now you want to throw all these other things. And then, and then my role, what's my role today as a black man in my community? How do I make that contribution to it? How do I, what am I? What value do I? All these types of things. But Jeff, as I hear you talk about some of this stuff, actually, my producer called me up the other night and said on PBS, Senator Ron Wyden is doing a national pitch about a project, just a sidebar in Baltimore, and it's amazing how these things are picking up.
It was President Biden.
It was President Biden. Okay, I thought
Baltimore, unveiling the Baltimore Railroad project.
Right, rail tunnel. The rail tunnel project, where they named this project the Frederick Douglass Project, right? Estimated to cost $6 billion and worth $4 billion of that is coming from the infrastructure dollars. Well over 30,000 blue collar jobs, and so it's kind of an example of what you're talking about, the possibility and the potential of what we're doing around here. And then I don't know the relationship of reparations with all this, but I think that for me, it's just about allowing the equity and the distribution of wealth to be more fair, and I think that as you push into this environment and you begin to make some of these things aware, some of these issues and some of these opportunities aware to the greater politicians or the greater dollar structure, I think we're going to get some more movement in this, Jeff. So I'm really proud of the work that you've been doing, and hey, man, much respect to you.
Right.
Thanks, John. You know, before we close out, dear, and I just want to, you know, we all grew up in kind of hip hop culture, and I remember this song that they did, and I was listening to it. It came on, so I listened to it the other night, and it was "We All in the Same Gang." It was a early '90s rap song, and I listened to Ice-T's portion of it, and I just want to read it. It says, "I got an idea. Give me a minute, and if it makes sense, then get with it. What if we could take our enemies, feed them poison, undereducate their girls and boys, and split them up? Make them fight one another, better yet, make them kill for a color. Keep them drunk and high so they won't know what's up. Make them think jail's where you go if you're tough. Keep them unemployed, then they'll probably steal. Give them more dope, and that they'll probably deal. They'll kill themselves off. Think about it. Dope plot. Somebody parties every time one of us gets shot."
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about this brother is essentially talked about everything that's really happened
in the day.
Right?
Yeah. And
But
go
so the
ahead.
philanthropy, though, is a part of your formula for success. Though,
Absolutely.
Really. When we look at it, and same with artists like that. I mean, it's their ability to, you know, sort of give back perspective, but also resources, right? Can before we go, also, Jeff, I mean, again, to make this list, you know, you're not just like black-led, you know, able to, you know, lead a good, solid team of people of color, you know, and get the gold, but, you know, it's really your ability to give back. It's the full circle.
It's the formula for
Speak
success.
a little bit how Raimore Construction.
Yeah.
It's about community, right? Again, you know, we can't, you know, we've been taught, you know, to have this only one syndrome, right? And for me, you know, if I win, everybody's got to win. Otherwise, we don't win.
We don't win.
You know what I mean? So it's not about that. So I sponsor a lot of different events. I can't do everything, but I do as much as I can, and y'all all know this. And I want to make sure people make money on my projects. Anybody that works for me as a subcontractor, they'll all tell you is that I'm going to make sure you make money on this project. Even if I got to handhold you to get through this, right, we're going to work through this, right? And then some of the community events, I think that we need to be the first dollars in our community, the things that we need. Our dollars need to go in first instead of always looking for white benevolence to kind of help us down. You know what I mean? We got enough strong companies now here is that why, you know, we sponsor the Jazz Festival and some of these other things we, you know, we've done because Cairo schools, because we need to, our first dollars need to be, first
Owning our
dollars need
real
to be
estate.
ours. Yeah.
Yes, right. Owning our real
It is
estate.
my community.
That's
It's
right.
not a white community. It's a black community, right?
right.
So-called black community.
Right.
That's my community.
Right.
My dollars need to be the first dollars in, right?
Yeah.
To support the things that, especially the things that are upward and mobile in our community that are going to, you know, change, you know, things, right? And so that's why it's so important that we support all the businesses, you know, whether it's, you know, we've done a lot of work with Flossin.
Yeah,
We've
man.
done a lot of work.
Yeah.
We support all the businesses to the best of our ability because that's how we spread the love, right? We show each other, you know, that we don't just say we love each other. I'll show you my love by my actions.
Walking people through it.
That's right. Wait. I'm excited about this interview this morning. You know, have my partner in here, man, and I'm so glad. And then look at y'all. Just know I didn't have nothing to do with him getting this award. It wasn't my selection. My team selected him through all that due diligence and research. So, but when you talk about philanthropy, you know, Flossin has a formula, and it's an entrance point, it's an agitation, it's a rival, and then there's that last magical part. philanthropic. The question is, what do you give back? And this whole idea of us sitting at the table just considering what we can get off it is just not an idea that's rooted in sustainability. The question is more or less about what we're going to bring to the table and what we're going to... Jeff, it was a pleasure having you here on the show today.
Pleasure to be here, John.
And, man, sharing that insight and wisdom. For those of you who are companies that are just starting out, I hope that you can grab some of this knowledge off of this table that we're spooning out to you. But there's so much more. Mr. Raimore, how do these people get a hold of you, man, if they need to get a hold of your company or get a hold of you and to be a part of this exciting opportunity?
Well, there's going to be a lot of projects that we're chasing. So we're going to have a lot of advertisements out when opportunities come, and we'll have those opportunities, for small levels, medium-sized level, and larger levels. The whole goal is to hopefully grow several companies to be able to become a Raimore, right? The more we have, the better, opportunities we can have. And we're right now, we don't want to fight over little small pieces. We want to grow that pie.
Yeah, that's right.
So, so just, stay tuned to everything that's out there. We publicize and all the stuff. John, you get all the notices that we'll put out on all the opportunities that are coming up. There's going to be tons of opportunities for work, tons of opportunities for employment. We're going to be doing an event, a hiring event in May, a big hiring event, which we'll talk to you about. We're just in the planning stages about, make sure we get that advertised out, where we're going to have living wage jobs. Consider the trades. I'm not saying, school is not that important, but the trades, you can still go to school and get a good career and go into most of the, people don't understand that most of the Bilderberg, most of they call them the robber barons, right, that actually built this country. Most of them did not have college degrees.
Right.
Most of the ones that actually are funding all these Harvards and all these universities, your Rockefellers and all these things, a lot of their kids didn't have college degrees, right? But yet they still, so I'm just saying, get in there and work. There's an opportunity, and you can educate yourself. We've never been in a time like this to where, I can get a college education over the internet, probably better educate myself over the internet than I can in college.
Yeah, that's them times, boy. It's something else.
I'll just YouTube it.
Well, the cat said he ain't messing with no broke what. But but the whole idea is he ain't messing with no ignorant, stupid person neither. Y'all that are out there, you got to make sure that you got knowledge. Believe me, if you've been alive for 25 years, you have learned something. And so the idea is to try to put it to work. And so listen here, y'all. Get this interview, get it and get with it, and y'all know what it's about out there. It's about Black History Month coming down the pike at y'all. Make that contribution. And again, oh man, it's always a pleasure, my brother, to have you in the room, man, spitting this knowledge and wisdom, and congratulations on your award. And we here at Black Beat want to keep letting you know the tone is about love and the frequency is about forgiveness. Y'all have a great afternoon, and thank y'all very much. You hear?